In the vast expanse of the galaxy, where stars burned like distant lanterns and planets floated in cosmic silence, there existed a legendary name whispered with both fear and awe. Valithra Sorrowshade, the ruthless alien outlaw whose infamy stretched across systems, was known for her cunning mind, deadly skills, and an uncanny ability to evade capture. The Galactic Agency had placed a bounty on her head worth 10,000 credits, not just because she was dangerous, but because she represented everything they sought to suppress: freedom, rebellion, and chaos. She was no ordinary criminal. Her crimes weren't petty thefts or random acts of violence. Instead, she dismantled corrupt regimes, exposed corporate exploitation, and freed enslaved colonies. To some, she was a hero cloaked in villainy. To others, she was a threat that needed eradication. And so, when word spread through the interstellar networks about the massive reward for her capture, hunters from every corner of the universe flocked toward the chance at glory, or riches. Among these hunters was a human man named Kale Draven. Unlike many who chased bounties out of greed or bloodlust, Kale did it for survival. Born on a desolate mining planet where poverty clung to people like shadows, he'd learned early how cruel life could be. He wasn't flashy or boastful like some hunters, nor did he have access to cutting-edge tech or armies of mercenaries. What he possessed was grit, determination, and enough scars, both physical and emotional, to fill volumes. Kale's ship, the Iron Wraith, was as battered as its owner but still managed to hum steadily through hyperspace. It wasn't much to look at, patched together with scrap metal and salvaged parts, but it got him where he needed to go. As he sat in the cockpit, scanning reports of Valithra's latest exploits, his thoughts drifted back to simpler times before the galaxy swallowed him whole. But nostalgia wouldn't pay the bills, or keep his oxygen tanks running. With a heavy sigh, he set course for the Outer Rim, where rumors placed Valithra hiding after her most recent escapade. What Kale didn't know then was that this mission would change him forever, not just as a hunter, but as a person. Because sometimes fate has a way of turning even the coldest hearts into something warm and alive again. When Kale arrived at the coordinates marked by whispers among smugglers and informants, he found himself staring at a derelict space station orbiting a dying star. Its surface was pockmarked with craters from meteor impacts, and faint lights flickered within its skeletal structure like ghostly eyes watching over the void. This was supposed to be Valithra's sanctuary, though calling it sanctuary seemed generous given its dilapidated state. He docked carefully, ensuring his blaster was fully charged and his combat suit functioning properly. The air inside the station smelled stale, carrying hints of rust and decay. Every step echoed loudly against the metallic walls, making it impossible to move stealthily. Still, Kale pressed forward, guided by his instincts honed over years of tracking elusive targets. It wasn't long before he encountered resistance. A trio of armed guards appeared around a corner, their weapons trained on him instantly. They wore mismatched armor cobbled together from various sources, marking them as hired guns rather than loyal followers. Their leader sneered, demanding to know why Kale dared trespass here. Without hesitation, Kale drew his blaster and fired 3 precise shots, each one hitting its mark cleanly. The guards collapsed without another word, leaving behind only silence and the acrid smell of burnt flesh. As he moved deeper into the labyrinthine corridors, Kale couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. His senses screamed warnings, yet nothing tangible materialized. Then, suddenly, a soft voice cut through the tension. "You've got guts coming here alone." Kale froze, his finger hovering near the trigger of his weapon. Slowly, he turned to face the speaker, and all coherent thought fled his mind. Standing before him was Valithra Sorrowshade herself. She was unlike anything he'd imagined. Forget the wanted posters depicting her as a cold-blooded killer. Forget the holovids showing her leading rebellions with fiery speeches. In person, she was breathtakingly beautiful. Her skin shimmered faintly under the dim lighting, reminiscent of moonlight dancing on water. Her eyes glowed like twin nebulae, swirling with colors too vibrant to describe. Long silver hair cascaded down her back, framing a face that seemed carved by gods. Even dressed in simple combat gear, she radiated elegance and power. For a moment, Kale forgot why he was there. All thoughts of bounties, galactic agencies, and danger vanished, replaced by sheer admiration. He blinked several times, trying to regain focus, but her presence overwhelmed him completely. Valithra tilted her head slightly, studying him with curiosity. "You're not like the others," she said softly, almost amused. "Most come charging in guns blazing, ready to drag me back in chains. Yet you hesitate." Her words snapped him partially out of his daze. I'm here for the bounty," he stammered, mentally cursing himself for sounding so weak. She laughed, a sound rich and melodic, filling the empty corridor with warmth. "Of course you are. Everyone is." Stepping closer, she circled him slowly, examining him as if sizing up prey. "But tell me, human, do you truly believe you can take me alive?" "I don't plan on failing," Cale replied, forcing confidence into his tone despite his racing heart. He raised his blaster slightly, aiming it at her chest. "Surrender now, and I'll make sure your trial is fair." Her laughter grew louder, echoing off the walls. "Fair? Oh, sweet naivete. There's no such thing in this galaxy." Pausing directly in front of him, she reached out and gently pushed his weapon aside. "Put that away. You won't need it." Against all logic, Cale obeyed. Something about her demeanor disarmed him, not just physically but emotionally. She exuded a calm authority that made resistance feel futile. Instead of attacking or fleeing, she simply stood there, meeting his gaze unflinchingly. "You intrigue me," she admitted after a pause. "Not many humans venture this far into the unknown. Fewer still possess the courage to stand toe-to-toe with me. So, let me offer you a deal." "A deal?" Cale echoed skeptically. "Yes." Her lips curved into a mischievous smile. "Leave now, forget about the bounty, and I'll give you something far more valuable than credits." "And what might that be?" he asked warily. "Me." The simplicity of her answer caught him off guard. Before he could respond, she continued, "Marry me, Cale Draven. Protect my life, and I will dedicate mine entirely to yours. No strings attached." His jaw dropped. Of all possible outcomes, this hadn't crossed his mind. Marry her? The infamous outlaw queen? Was she insane? Or was this some elaborate trick designed to throw him off balance? Before he could formulate a reply, alarms blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed overhead, signaling an incoming threat. Valithra's expression darkened immediately. "They've found us," she muttered grimly. Turning back to Cale, she grabbed his arm firmly. "Decide quickly. Do we fight side by side, or do I face them alone while you collect your bounty?" The decision should have been easy. 10,000 credits awaited him if he handed her over. Yet as he looked into those mesmerizing eyes, filled with determination and vulnerability alike, he realized money meant nothing compared to the fire burning within him. Whatever spell she'd cast over him, it worked. "I'll stay," he declared finally. "For now." Her smile returned, brighter than ever. "Good choice." With that, she released him and sprinted down the corridor, shouting orders over her shoulder. Reluctantly, Cale followed, unsure whether he'd just made the smartest or dumbest decision of his life, but certain it would define his future either way. The battle erupted swiftly, tearing through the fragile piece of the derelict station like a supernova shattering the night sky. Reinforcements sent by the Galactic Agency poured in, clad in sleek black armor and armed with weapons far superior to anything Cale had seen outside military-grade arsenals. Their movements were synchronized, efficient, and merciless, a stark contrast to the ragtag band of defenders Valithra commanded. Cale found himself ducking behind cover alongside her, trading fire with enemies advancing relentlessly. Despite the chaos surrounding them, Valithra remained eerily composed, barking commands to her scattered allies while simultaneously taking out foes with pinpoint accuracy. Her dual pistols danced in her hands like extensions of her body, spitting plasma bolts with lethal precision. Watching her fight felt surreal, almost hypnotic, as though witnessing poetry written in sparks and screams. At one point, a grenade landed dangerously close to their position. Without hesitation, Valithra tackled Cale to the ground, shielding him with her own body as the explosion rocked the corridor. Dust rained down upon them, mingling with the acrid smoke of charred metal. When she rolled off him, grinning cheekily despite the dirt smudging her radiant features, Cale couldn't help but laugh nervously. "Still glad you stayed," she teased, offering him a hand up. Ask me again when we're not getting blown up, he shot back, accepting her help. Together, they resumed firing, carving paths through waves of attackers. Their teamwork proved surprisingly effective. Where Kale lacked finesse, he compensated with raw determination, planting explosives strategically to collapse sections of the station and slow the enemy advance. Meanwhile, Velathra's agility and tactical brilliance kept them one step ahead, turning potential ambushes into opportunities for counterattacks. Each time they exchanged quick nods or shared knowing glances, a bond formed between them, fragile yet undeniable. Amidst the gunfire and destruction, moments of levity emerged unexpectedly. At one juncture, Velathra accidentally triggered a malfunctioning vending machine during a skirmish, causing packets of expired snacks to rain down upon the combatants. Both sides paused briefly, bewildered by the absurdity, before resuming hostilities with renewed vigor. Later, she cracked jokes about how Galactic agents clearly prioritized fashion over functionality, given how easily their shiny helmets reflected laser beams right back at them. Yet beneath the humor lay stark reminders of mortality. One of Velathra's lieutenants fell protecting a critical junction, his sacrifice buying them precious seconds to regroup. Another ally limped away clutching a wound, blood staining the floor as he retreated. Kale witnessed firsthand the cost of opposing tyranny, realizing that Velathra's reputation stemmed not merely from personal skill but also from inspiring loyalty among those willing to die for her cause. As hours dragged on, fatigue began wearing thin on everyone involved. Kale's muscles ached, his vision blurred intermittently, and doubt crept into his mind. Could they actually win this? Were they fighting for freedom or merely delaying inevitable capture? Questions swirled unanswered until Velathra yanked him into a maintenance tunnel, sealing the entrance behind them. "We can't hold them forever," she admitted breathlessly, leaning against the wall. For the first time since meeting her, Kale saw cracks in her facade, uncertainty etched onto her luminous face. "If we don't escape soon, they'll overwhelm us." "What's the plan then?" he asked, equally exhausted but refusing to show weakness. Her gaze softened momentarily. "There's always a plan. But it requires trust. Complete trust." He hesitated, weighing options dwindling faster than ammunition supplies. Finally, nodding slowly, he replied, "You've got mine." She smiled faintly, gratitude flickering in her iridescent eyes. "Then follow me. And whatever happens next, don't let go." With that cryptic warning, she led him deeper into the bowels of the station, navigating narrow passages barely wide enough for a single person. Shadows stretched long behind them, illuminated sporadically by distant explosions shaking the structure above. Though uncertainty loomed large, Kale felt oddly reassured. Whether driven by adrenaline, desperation, or something deeper, he trusted Velathra implicitly, an unfamiliar sensation he hadn't experienced in years. Little did he know, the true test of that trust awaited just beyond the next bend. Emerging from the claustrophobic tunnels, Kale and Velathra stepped into what appeared to be the station's core chamber, a cavernous room dominated by a colossal reactor humming ominously. Pipes snaked along the walls, dripping condensation that pooled on the grated floor. Faint emergency lights cast eerie red glows, painting the scene in hues of danger and urgency. "This is it," Velathra announced, her voice steady despite the weight of their predicament. "The reactor powers the entire station. If we overload it, we'll create enough chaos to slip away unnoticed." Kale frowned, skepticism creeping into his tone. "And risk blowing ourselves up in the process?" She smirked, unfazed. "Trust me, human. I've done worse things with higher stakes." Before he could argue further, shouts echoed from the entrance. Galactic agents flooded in, weapons drawn and expressions grim. Trapped between an impending explosion and relentless pursuers, Kale tightened his grip on his blaster, preparing for what might be his final stand. Velathra, however, had other plans. With fluid grace, she darted toward the reactor controls, inputting commands at lightning speed. Sparks flew as circuits overloaded, and alarms blared louder than ever. Amidst the chaos, she shouted instructions to Kale, guiding him to reroute energy flows manually while she hacked into the system remotely. "Keep them busy," she yelled, dodging incoming fire with astonishing agility. Kale complied, laying down suppressing fire to buy her precious seconds. Bullets ricocheted off metal surfaces, creating a symphony of destruction. Sweat dripped down his brow as he fought fiercely, channeling every ounce of training and instinct into keeping the agents at bay. Just when it seemed they might succeed, disaster struck. An agent managed to bypass Kale's defenses, aiming straight for Velethra. Acting purely on reflex, Kale lunged forward, tackling the assailant to the ground. They wrestled furiously, exchanging blows until Kale managed to disarm him, delivering a decisive punch that knocked the agent unconscious. Breathing heavily, Kale glanced toward Velethra, expecting gratitude or acknowledgement. Instead, he saw panic flash across her face. "No!" she screamed, abandoning her post to rush toward him. Confused, Kale turned and froze. A stray bolt of plasma, deflected unpredictably due to damaged equipment, hurtled directly toward him. Time slowed as comprehension dawned. There was no escaping this. Closing his eyes, he braced for impact, but none came. Opening his eyes cautiously, Kale saw Velethra standing in front of him, her body trembling slightly. Blood seeped through her armor where the blast had struck her shoulder. Pain contorted her features, yet her gaze remained unwavering. "Why?" he choked out, disbelief choking his words. "Because," she replied softly, her voice strained but resolute, "you chose to protect me. Now it's my turn." Anger surged within Kale, mixing with guilt and admiration. Without thinking, he scooped her up bridal style, ignoring protests about her ability to walk. "We're finishing this together," he growled, carrying her back to the controls. Using one-handed typing, she completed the sequence, initiating a countdown visible on a nearby screen. 30 seconds, she announced weakly, leaning heavily against him. "Let's get out of here." They sprinted toward the exit, pursued closely by agents desperate to stop them. Explosions rocked the station behind them, debris raining down as structural integrity failed. Reaching the docking bay, Kale practically threw Velethra aboard the Iron Wraith before leaping in himself. Engines roared to life just as the reactor detonated, engulfing the station in a brilliant inferno. Safe within the cockpit, Kale slumped into his seat, adrenaline fading rapidly. Beside him, Velethra groaned softly, clutching her wounded shoulder. Despite everything, she managed a small smile. "You saved me," she murmured, her voice tinged with wonder. "Guess marrying me isn't such a bad idea after all." Kale chuckled weakly, exhaustion washing over him. "Don't push your luck, outlaw." As the wreckage of the station disappeared into the void, neither spoke of what lay ahead. But deep down, both knew their lives had changed irrevocably. Whatever challenges awaited beyond the stars, they would face them together, or not at all. The aftermath of the station's destruction left Kale and Velethra with little time to rest. News of their escape spread quickly through the galactic grapevine, painting them as partners in crime, a duo now equally infamous. Bounty hunters who once sought only Velethra's head were now doubling their efforts to capture both her and the human who dared defy the Galactic Agency by siding with her. Every star system they entered seemed to buzz with whispers of their presence. Every dockside bar filled with eyes watching for a glimpse of the outlaw queen or her unlikely companion. For Kale, this new reality was jarring. He had spent years operating on the fringes, careful not to draw too much attention to himself. But now he was public enemy number 2, his face plastered across bounty boards alongside Velethra's. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd started this journey chasing a reward, only to become part of the prize himself. Velethra, however, took it all in stride. Sitting cross-legged on the battered couch in the Iron Wraith's cramped living quarters, she patched up the wound on her shoulder while humming an unfamiliar tune. Her silvery hair caught the dim light from the overhead panel, shimmering like liquid moonlight despite the grime coating her armor. She didn't seem bothered by the chaos surrounding them. In fact, she almost looked amused. "You know," she said casually, tying off the bandage with practiced ease, "we could always turn ourselves in. I'm sure the agency would offer us some kind of deal." Kale snorted, leaning back against the wall opposite her. "Yeah, right. A deal involving handcuffs and life sentences in cryo-prison sounds real appealing." She grinned, tossing aside the bloody gauze. "I was joking, human. Relax. You're stuck with me whether you like it or not." He raised an eyebrow at that. "Funny how things work out." One minute I'm hunting you, the next I'm running with you. Destiny, she quipped dramatically, placing a hand over her heart. Or maybe just bad luck. Despite the humor lacing her words, there was truth beneath them. Their situation was precarious, and neither of them could afford to let their guard down, not even for a moment. They needed a plan, somewhere safe to regroup before the relentless pursuit overwhelmed them completely. After hours poring over star charts and encrypted intel feeds, Valithra finally found what they were looking for, a remote asteroid colony called Havenfall. It wasn't much more than a glorified rock floating in the shadow of a dying sun, but its isolation made it perfect for laying low. According to rumors, Havenfall operated outside galactic jurisdiction, populated by drifters, smugglers, and others seeking refuge from authority. If anyone could provide sanctuary, or at least temporary shelter, it would be the denizens of this forgotten corner of space. Setting course for Havenfall felt like stepping into the unknown yet again. As the Iron Wraith limped through hyperspace, its engines groaning under the strain of recent battles, tension simmered between them. Neither spoke openly about the future, though questions lingered unspoken. Could they truly trust the people of Havenfall? Would staying hidden long enough to heal and repair the ship be possible? And most importantly, what came after? When they arrived, the sight of Havenfall did nothing to ease their worries. The asteroid was pockmarked with craters and surrounded by jagged debris fields, making navigation treacherous. A sprawling settlement clung precariously to its surface, constructed from salvaged ships, scrap metal, and whatever materials settlers could scavenge. Lights flickered unevenly throughout the colony, casting eerie shadows against the barren landscape. It looked less like a haven and more like the remnants of a war zone. Landing proved challenging, given the lack of proper docking facilities. After several tense minutes maneuvering through the cluttered airspace, Kale managed to set the ship down on a flat patch of ground near the edge of the settlement. Before disembarking, Valithra pulled him aside, her expression unusually serious. "This place is dangerous," she warned quietly. "Not because of the environment, but because of the people. Everyone here has secrets, scars, and reasons to distrust outsiders. We need to tread carefully." "I thought you thrived in situations like this," he replied, adjusting the blaster holstered at his side. "I do," she admitted with a smirk. "But even I know when to play it smart." Stepping out onto the rocky terrain, they were immediately met with wary stares. Residents moved cautiously, their hands hovering near weapons concealed beneath tattered cloaks. Some whispered among themselves, pointing discreetly at the newcomers. Others simply ignored them, focusing instead on whatever tasks occupied their days, repairing machinery, trading goods, or simply surviving another harsh cycle on this unforgiving rock. Their first stop was a cantina nestled deep within the heart of the settlement. It served as both social hub and information exchange, where deals were struck and alliances forged over mugs of questionable brew. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and the murmur of hushed conversations. Patrons ranged from humanoid species to beings so alien Kale couldn't begin to guess their origins. All wore expressions hardened by hardship, their gazes sharp and calculating. Valithra led the way to the bar, ordering 2 drinks without asking Kale's preference. When the bartender slid over 2 frothy glasses, she handed one to him and leaned close, speaking softly enough to avoid eavesdroppers. "We need someone reliable," she explained. "Someone who can help us get supplies, repairs, and maybe even intel on galactic movements. Any ideas?" Kale scanned the room thoughtfully. His gaze landed on a figure sitting alone in a shadowy corner, a tall, broad-shouldered individual clad in heavy armor adorned with tribal markings. Despite the dim lighting, the person exuded an aura of quiet confidence, sipping slowly from a glass while observing the crowd with piercing eyes. "What about him?" Kale suggested, nodding subtly toward the stranger. Valithra followed his line of sight and nodded approvingly. "Good choice. Let's see if he's willing to talk." Approaching the stranger required navigating through clusters of patrons, each step drawing closer scrutiny. By the time they reached the table, the armored figure had already noticed them, setting down their drink and folding massive arms across their chest. "You've got guts approaching me," the figure rumbled, voice deep and gravelly. "Most folks around here know better than to disturb me." "Then consider us exceptions," Valithra replied smoothly, sliding into the seat opposite them. Kale hesitated briefly before joining her, acutely aware of how outnumbered they were if this turned hostile. The stranger studied them intently, taking in Velithra's regal bearing and Kale's weathered demeanor. Finally, they spoke. Names. Velithra Sorrowshade, she introduced herself without hesitation. And this is Kale Draven. We're looking for assistance. Recognition flickered in the stranger's eyes at the mention of Velithra's name, followed by a hint of amusement. So, the legendary outlaw graces my table. What brings you to Havenfall? Trouble, Kale interjected bluntly. Lots of it. And we need someone who knows how to handle trouble. The stranger chuckled darkly, leaning forward slightly. You've come to the right place. Name's Kryn. Used to run ops for factions you wouldn't believe. These days, I keep to myself unless the price is right. Perfect, thought Kale. This was exactly the kind of contact they needed. Someone experienced, resourceful, and pragmatic. Velithra wasted no time cutting to the chase. We need parts for our ship, medical supplies, and possibly a lead on safe routes out of here. Can you help us? Kryn tapped a finger against the table, considering. Depends. How valuable are you to the agency these days? Let's just say they're offering enough credits to make kings jealous, Velithra replied dryly. To her credit, Kryn didn't bat an eye. Instead, they leaned back, stroking their chin thoughtfully. All right. Here's the deal, I'll hook you up with what you need, but in return, I want a cut of whatever payday you're planning once you leave this rock. Deal. Kale glanced at Velithra, silently seeking confirmation. She gave an almost imperceptible nod. Deal, she agreed firmly. With Kryn's assistance secured, they began the process of gathering supplies and repairing the Iron Wraith. Over the following days, Havenfall revealed itself to be both a blessing and a curse. While the colony offered sanctuary from immediate threats, its inhabitants proved unpredictable, with loyalties shifting as quickly as the winds whipping across the asteroid surface. Rumors of bounties circulated freely, forcing Kale and Velithra to remain constantly vigilant. One evening, as they worked side by side welding a damaged section of the ship's hull, Kale broke the silence. Do you ever think about giving up? Just walking away from all this? Velithra paused, lowering her welding torch. For a moment, she looked genuinely contemplative. Then she shook her head, smiling faintly. No, not anymore. This fight, it's bigger than either of us. Walking away wouldn't change anything. It would only mean letting them win. He nodded slowly, understanding her resolve. Deep down, he shared it too. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. Because turning back wasn't an option. Not for them, not anymore. As the repairs neared completion, news arrived that sent chills down their spines. A fleet of Galactic agents had been spotted en route to Havenfall, tipped off by an unknown informant. Time was running out. After months of relentless pursuit, constant danger, and sleepless nights spent planning their next move, Kale and Velithra finally found themselves standing on the shores of a secluded paradise, a small, uncharted island hidden deep within an isolated star system. The journey to this place had been perilous, fraught with narrow escapes and sacrifices that tested their resolve at every turn. But now, as waves lapped gently against the pristine sands and twin suns painted the sky in hues of gold and crimson, they allowed themselves to believe, for the first time, that peace might actually be within reach. The island was everything they could have hoped for, untouched by civilization, abundant with natural resources, and completely off the grid. Dense jungles teemed with exotic wildlife, while crystal-clear waters sparkled under the sunlight. It felt like a dream, a world far removed from the chaos they'd left behind. For days after arriving, they simply basked in the tranquility, marveling at how different life could feel when no one was hunting you. But even amidst this newfound serenity, there were decisions to make, choices about the kind of future they wanted to build together. One evening, as they sat side by side on the beach watching the stars emerge one by one, Velithra turned to Kale with a soft smile. You know, she began, her voice carrying the weight of unspoken emotions, we never did finish what we started back on that station. Kale raised an eyebrow, feigning confusion. What are you talking about? We blew it up, didn't we? She laughed softly, nudging him playfully. "Not that. I meant this." Reaching into a pouch strapped to her belt, she pulled out a simple band made of shimmering metal, not flashy or ornate, but undeniably beautiful. "I've carried this around since before we met. A reminder of something I thought I'd never find." His breath caught in his throat as realization dawned. "Is that a wedding ring?" She nodded, holding it up between them. "It is now. If you'll have me." For a moment, words failed him. All the battles they'd fought, all the moments of uncertainty and fear, they seemed insignificant compared to the overwhelming warmth swelling in his chest. Finally, he managed a crooked grin. "You really think I'd say no after everything we've been through?" Her answering smile lit up the night. Without another word, they clasped hands, sealing their promise beneath the infinite expanse of the cosmos. There were no grand ceremonies, no witnesses to speak vows over. They didn't need any of that. Their bond had been forged in fire, tested by adversity, and strengthened by trust. This quiet exchange was more than enough. Life on the island settled into a rhythm neither of them had ever experienced before. Days stretched lazily, filled with simple joys rather than survival tactics. They built a modest home nestled among the trees, using materials salvaged from the iron wraith alongside local wood and stone. Mornings began with shared meals cooked over an open flame, followed by hours spent tending to crops or exploring the lush wilderness surrounding them. Evenings ended with laughter echoing across the shoreline as they recounted stories of their past adventures, or imagined new ones they might someday share. Over time, their family grew, not just in love but in size. First came a daughter, born under the light of the twin moons, her silver hair mirroring her mother's luminous beauty. Then a son, whose curious nature and boundless energy reminded everyone of Kale's determination. Together, they formed a picture-perfect tableau of happiness, each day bringing fresh reminders of how fortunate they were to have escaped the shadows of their former lives. Yet, despite the idyllic setting, remnants of their old selves occasionally surfaced. Valethra still woke some nights with the echoes of alarms ringing in her ears, only to find comfort in Kale's steady presence beside her. And Kale sometimes caught himself scanning the horizon, half expecting ships to descend upon their sanctuary. But these moments became fewer and farther between, replaced instead by laughter, hope, and dreams of a brighter future. Their children thrived in the freedom of the island, learning skills passed down from both parents. Valethra teaching them stealth and strategy, Kale instilling lessons of resilience and resourcefulness. Though they lived far from the galaxy's turmoil, the values of courage and compassion remained central to their upbringing. On clear nights, the family would gather around a bonfire, gazing skyward as Valethra pointed out constellations and told tales of distant worlds. Her stories always ended the same way. No matter where you go or what you face, remember who you are, and remember that love can conquer anything. As years turned into decades, the scars of their past faded further, though they never forgot the sacrifices that brought them here. Occasionally, whispers reached them through smugglers or passing traders, news of rebellions sparked by Valethra's legacy, or galactic agents still searching fruitlessly for the infamous outlaw queen. But none of it mattered anymore. Their island was a fortress of its own, guarded not by weapons but by the strength of their unity. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in shades of lavender and orange, Kale stood beside Valethra, watching their grown children preparing to set sail on their own adventures. His arm wrapped around her waist, he leaned in close, whispering, "Do you ever regret leaving it all behind?" She tilted her head, considering the question seriously before shaking it gently. "Never. Out there, we were running. Here, we're living. That's the difference." He kissed her temple, feeling gratitude swell within him. Whatever challenges lay ahead for their children, whatever paths they chose to follow, they would carry with them the knowledge that true freedom wasn't found in rebellion or escape. It was found in connection, in love, and in choosing to build something worth fighting for. And so, as the tide rolled in and the stars blinked to life above, Kale and Valethra stood hand in hand, content in the knowledge that they had created not just a haven, but a home. Their story, a tale of danger, defiance, and devotion, had come full circle, ending not with triumph over enemies but with the quiet joy of a life well lived.